When you think of the GOAT of any sport, you probably think of one of the best players who has also won a lot of championships. But what if I told you that one of Fortnite's best players with over $1 million in earnings has never even won an FNCS? This is the story of Fortnite's unluckiest player, ThomasHD. Thomas Hawksbro Davidson was born on May 30th, 2002 in Denmark. Gaming and specifically esports are extremely popular in Denmark, so naturally Thomas started playing video games at a very young age. Growing up, he mainly played CSGO and was very talented from the start. Because of this, he started to take the game more seriously and began to compete in local tournaments. Through these tournaments, he would become friends with tons of people who also enjoyed competitive gaming and had the same interests as him. Up until September of 2017, Thomas and his friends basically played nothing but CSGO until a new game caught their attention. Once Fortnite Battle Royale came out, he instantly fell in love with it. While he would still mainly play CSGO, Fortnite was a fun new game that he and all of his friends enjoyed playing. Over time, he realized that Fortnite had real potential to become a popular esport, so he started to play more and more, and coming from a competitive gaming background, he wanted to be the best. Early on, he participated in pro scrims, improving every day, and towards the end of 2018, everything started coming together as Fortnite announced they were putting $100 million into competitive prize pools. The first major tournament he competed in was Winter Royale. Although he finished a disappointing 90th in finals, qualifying for the tournament was an achievement in itself. Shortly after this was the announcement of the $30 million Fortnite World Cup. For somebody who grew up in an environment where esports is so popular, this was a dream come true, and he was going to do whatever it took to qualify. In the months leading up to the World Cup qualifiers, Thomas practiced all day every day. In solos, the top 8 players each week would punch their ticket to New York City, and he was improving each qualifier. 59th week 1, 28th week 2, and in the third qualifier, it was looking like he was going to do it.
1v1 situation. Up on the top, Thomas trying his best to rebuild as Broadmelly is shooting him down, but unable to keep tarping out, and Broadmelly gets that fall elimination.
Unfortunately, he would just miss out and ended in 17th place. That was the closest he would come to qualifying in solos, but luckily he still had duos. In the first 4 weeks, Thomas and his duo didn't perform too well, so he decided to make a change for the last qualifier by teaming up with Kluja. Kluja was another Danish player with a CSGO background, and while he qualified for the World Cup solos, he was struggling in duos, so he decided on playing with Thomas.
It shifts down, and we got Skype in Vato, Vorin in Tux, and then Kluja in Singularities. ThomasHD taking up the spots, 1 point separating the difference.
This performance secured them $50,000 and their spot in the tournament. Going into the World Cup, they were by no means a favorite to win, but they placed a respectable 21st. After this, Thomas and his parents made the decision to withdraw him from school so he could fully focus on Fortnite.
After the World Cup, we decided to pull him out of the school and focus 100% on esport, Fortnite.
This came at the perfect time for the announcement of the Fortnite Championship Series, better known as FNCS. With his entire focus on becoming the best player he could be, him and Kluja picked up Elocrats, who was one of the people he used to play CSGO with, for trios. In the 5 weeks of qualifiers, they made $15,000 each and secured their spot in heats where they easily qualified to the grand finals. The trio would finish in 9th place, and while that wasn't bad by any means, Thomas wanted to be the best. With such a promising start to his Fortnite career, a lot of organizations were looking to sign him, and ultimately he ended up joining Team Atlantis.
I'm ThomasHD, and I'm joining Team Atlantis.
Now that he was getting paid a salary to compete, it gave him a sense of stability, which allowed him to grind even harder. Sadly, the start of Chapter 2 did not go well. Squads was the game mode for FNCS in Chapter 2 Season 1, and his team did pretty bad. They did not make finals in any of the qualifiers and failed to make the grand finals. This was a huge wake-up call, and little did we know he was about to turn into one of the greatest players of all time. The following season, him and Kluja locked in and easily qualified for grand finals, placing 2nd in their heat and then 18th in the finals. Next was the Solo FNCS Invitational, which was the first major solo tournament since the World Cup. Leading up to it, he placed 2nd and 1st in back-to-back solo cash cups, meaning his confidence was at an all-time high. This was his chance to finally prove himself as a solo player after failing to qualify for the World Cup, and he did just that. With a 4th place finish, he secured himself $60,000. A few days later, he won the Benji Fishy Cup, making another $5,000, and at this point, Thomas was easily one of the best players in the game. He had been uploading highlight videos on his YouTube channel for months, but all these placements made each of his videos get hundreds of thousands of views. Chapter 2 Season 3 3 featured yet another solo FNCS, and although he only finished 18th, he was already looking forward to the next season, which was announced as trios. He teamed up with Flick and Anas, who were two of the best players in Europe at the time. After dominating FNCS qualifiers and winning their heat, they were ready for the grand finals. Although they played extremely well, Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson would ultimately take home the win, and Thomas and his trio ended in 3rd place. They stuck together going into the next season, where they won their heat by over 100 points, but once again just fell short of the win with a 2nd place finish. They also played the following season, keeping up the trend by placing 4th in FNCS. With a 3rd place in Season 4, a 2nd in Season 5, and a 4th in Season 6, you would think that Season 7 was the one where they would finally win their first championship. But before this season's trio FNCS, there was the solo all-star showdown. Thomas finished in 9th place, adding another $30,000 to his earnings. His trio was expected to be a favorite to win, but everything went wrong out of nowhere. In order to qualify, they needed to place top 6 in their heat, but finished in 7th. Luckily, they still had another chance in the reboot rounds, but would fall short once again, completely missing out on grand finals. After this performance, they needed to make a change, so Flick was replaced by an FNCS champion by the name of Queasy. In the first trio FNCS of Chapter 2 Season 8, they placed 8th, which was pretty underwhelming. This is crazy considering a top 8 finish in FNCS would be very good for almost anybody, but the tournament everybody had their eyes set on was Grand Royale. Grand Royale had the largest prize pool of any tournament since the World Cup, so winning it would be huge. Queasy, Anas, and Thomas were able to win 3 out of the 12 games in finals, but once again failed to win. Another top 3 and $90,000 in his pocket, but Thomas just could not win. By now, you might understand why he's the unluckiest Fortnite player of all time. Out of the 12 FNCSs so far, he has finished top 10 in 7 of them and top 4 in 4. But for some reason, he could not get over the hump to actually win. In November of 2021, he would sign to Astralis. For a kid from Denmark that grew up playing CSGO, this was a dream come true, as Astralis is one of the most decorated teams in Counter-Strike. Throughout the entirety of Chapter 2, he was able to make a total of $420,000. Going into Chapter 3, the game mode would change to duos, and he teamed up with the greatest player of all time, Tayson. With 4 FNCS wins under his belt, it looked like Thomas found the perfect person to end a streak of bad luck. Once again, they finished in 3rd place. The next season, Thomas would play with Trippern, and they would once again finish 3rd place. They stuck together for Chapter 3 Season 3 and placed a respectable 6th, and these placements were good enough to qualify for the FNCS Invitational in Raleigh, North Carolina. With it being the first global LAN since World Cup, it was the perfect scenario for them to win. They were by no means favorites to win the tournament, however, they played well and finished in 4th place. If you haven't been keeping track, Thomas now has 11 top 10 finishes with 7 top 4s and no wins. But this was really just the beginning. In Chapter 4 Season 1, he would duo with Malabuka. At the time, Malabuka was regarded as one of the best players in the game, so they were guaranteed to do well. They won back-to-back Elite Cups before easily qualifying for Grand Finals, and we were about to witness one of the most insane finishes to a tournament in Fortnite history. Throughout the entire Grand Finals, it was a 2-horse race between Malabuka and Thomas and Tayson and Murstache. Going into the last game, Tayson and Murstache were winning by 3 points, which is only a 1-kill difference. We were about to find out if Thomas could finally break the curse and win his first FNCS.
Malabuka in trouble. One player below him, low HP, can't enter the floor, has to hammer all the way out. Tayson on the backside of his own. No match left. Tayson hung high to dry. Malabuka on his last massive small goal. So close to the mine. Malabuka the ball. It's done.
That's why he's the GOAT. Tayson stays alive when it shouldn't be possible.
Frankie, Takada, Mini Miner. Who has won this FNCS?
Going into game number 12, there were just 3 points separating our top 2 duos on the leaderboard, and now we can reveal there's just 1 point between it, and your champions of major number 1 are Murstache and Tayson.
Yet again, he fell just short of the win by 1 point. Although they got second, this was still good enough to qualify for the Global Championships in his hometown of Copenhagen at the end of the year. After this, they competed at DreamHack Dallas and DreamHack Sweden in the Duo Zero Build events and won both of them, securing $45,000 each. This brought Thomas's lifetime earnings from Fortnite to over $1 million. The following FNCS, Malabuka and Thomas played extremely well, but finished in 3rd place due to Queasy and Vhronos' historic performance where they won 6 out of 12 games. Yet another top 3 finish without a win. In Chapter 4 Season 3, he would have his worst performance in over 2 years, an 11th place. He was just that good, where an 11th place was considered to be terrible. But him and Malabuka didn't really care about this season, as their eyes were set on the Global Championships. Thomas was undoubtedly the best player without an FNCS TGS win, and after years of being so close, the global LAN was being hosted in the city he's lived in for his entire life. With the home crowd behind him, they would easily qualify for finals through the upper bracket, but there was one issue. They landed at the same drop spot as one of North America's best duos, Kanata and Agers. Both duos had been landing at the racetrack for the entire year, so neither of them were going to leave.
Listen, like, I got nowhere else to land, but, you know, that's just how the game is. Like, I'm just going to have fun today. I've already accepted not winning, you know what I'm saying, but I'm just going to see what happens.
Being contested, there was no way either team was going to win, so Thomas's hopes and dreams of winning at FNCS were crushed once again as they finished in 39th. Every time it seemed like he was finally going to secure his first championship, something happened to take it away from him, and the story continues to get worse. In Chapter 5 Season 1, Thomas teamed up with Queasy and landed at Lavish Lair. They were contested at the drop spot by another duo, but it didn't matter because they absolutely dominated them off spawn. Just like Chapter 4 Season 1, this finals was a 2-horse race, but this time Malibuca was running against Thomas. To start the last game, Queasy and Thomas had 612 points, and Malibuca and Murstache were right behind them at 610. With a 2-point lead, all they needed was to do a little bit better than Malibuca and Murstache. Both duos were struggling to stay above Storm Surge, and Queasy and Thomas were taken out in 20th with 3 eliminations. Shortly after this, Malibuca and Murstache went down in 17th with 2 eliminations.
It's time to see the final leaderboard and who is raising the axe of champions. And we can now reveal that your champions of Chapter 5, Season 1 by 1 point, are winners of $170,000, the Axe of Champions, and a spot in Global Championships is Murstache and Malibuca.
Another second place with a difference of 1 point. The worst part about this is that in one of the games, a player in the duo contesting them died to fall damage in a 2v1 situation. Because of this, they didn't receive the points for eliminating him, which would have won them the entire tournament. By now, it just has to be some kind of sick joke where he is not allowed to win. Last season, him and Queasy were contested by 2 other teams in finals and somehow still managed to pull off a 7th, but it's starting to look like he will never win. With their Season 1 performance, they have already qualified for this year's Global Championship in Fort Worth, and they will more than likely qualify for this season's grand final. With a total of 14 top 10 finishes and 10 top 4s without a win, ThomasHD is easily the unluckiest Fortnite player of all time. Do you think he will ever manage to get a first place under his belt, or is he just cursed? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoy videos like this, subscribe and go check out all my other videos.